Welcome to Raising Happy and Thriving Gifted Kids, a daily podcast where you get relatable stories, interesting lessons, and practical tips to help your kids thrive and be happy while enjoying your own life even more. When I was running a year-long program to guide a group of parents to, improve their skills as a parent to guide their smart kids, we were having different tracks. We had a track to teach the basics of giftedness, but also twice exceptional or dealing with outstanding top talents. But we also talked about child raising theories, different theories, and how to apply them, and how to kind of make a plan for where do you want to go. What kind of parent do you want to be? What kind of life do you want your kid to have? And one of the tracks was self-care for parents. Well, after a year, I got really good reviews, people really enthusiastic, but they said, well, the material was just too much. We weren't able to follow all the programs, and asked what parts did you do and what parts didn't you do? And inevitably the answer would be the part that we skipped was the self-care for parents. But then I would continue the conversation and say, how are you doing? What's going on? And a lot of parents these days are burned out, and I should recognize that. It's a tough job in this world, being a parent. It's so complex. Your children are complex. You are complex. Raising kids in the world the way it is right now is complex. So that puts a really high bar and threshold on the job you have to do as a parent. And that's, aside from the work you have to do and maybe other kids you have to take care of and, a life that you have to run and a social life you want to have. So with all that in mind, a lot of, people are actually kind of standard running their life on fumes. They're in their reserve battery trying to cope with life. And that fascinates me so much. How can you, commit to being the best parent you can be and at the same time, don't take care of yourself? It's the oldest cliche in the book, but put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. I mean, imagine being in the plane. The plane is going down. There's not enough oxygen. You see your kid. You see yourself. And what do you decide to do? I will put the oxygen mask on my kid. And while I'm doing that, I'm losing consciousness. I'm not helping my kid. And I lost consciousness. So I'm not helping myself either. Now we're both dead. Well, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but you get the point. The point is that if you have more energy, try to imagine that if you would have twice as much energy to parent, but with exactly the same amount of information you have now, you probably would be doing better. Or if you have twice as much energy and you don't have the information, you can spend half your time learning new stuff and the other half applying it. So the core challenge here usually is not having enough energy to do this job or to, fill in this vocation, this calling properly. So I really am. We're going to actually dive into this for a couple of, podcast episodes. We're going to dive into this, the importance of taking care of yourself. Because when you take care of yourself, you will also be a better role model for your kid. Because, this is not, the subtle sweet talk. And especially if you, do more with me or engage in coaching or one of my programs, I'm not the most subtle person in the world. But are you really going to be the type of parent who has as a vision, I will sacrifice myself, I will burn myself out to give my kids everything they, need and they desire? There's a quote that says, your actions speak so loud, I cannot hear what you're saying. If you model as a parent a lifelong of sacrificing yourself, burning yourself out as part of being a parent, what will your children do? And what do you want your children to do? Are you hoping that your children, 20, 25, 30 years from now, when they're growing up and they get children, that they burn themselves out? That they sacrifice themselves for their children? Or are you hoping that they thrive in their own life, and from that thriving, from that energy, from that enthusiasm, they can raise their kids in a way that's happy as well? Which of the two you want to be? I bet you want to be the person who is a role model of somebody who is thriving while they're raising their children. So put yourself first. And that's not an easy assignment, I know. And I used the word complex before. I did martial arts for a while, Kempo karate, American Kempo karate. And one of the senseis there, Edmund Parker Sr., said, complexity is compound simplicity. It is not magic. It is not hard. It's just complex. It's a lot of moving parts. But the first decision has to be to put yourself first. Make sure you have the energy to raise your children better, because otherwise you're going to be the perfect model parent who is so burned out and stressed out, you still snap at your children. And, every parent snaps at their children, but it is our job and our duty to take better care of ourselves so we have enough left in the tank to deal with our children when they're at their most intense, when they're at their most strong-willed. So what are you going to do today to put yourself first, to take a short moment to breathe, to be mindful, to meditate, to go for a walk before you go towards your children, so you can be there, you can be present in all of you, in the full version of you. Okay, curious what you're going to do. Please apply this and don't gloss over this, because this might be one of the most important things I could share with you. If you liked this episode of Raising Happy and Thriving Kids, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast software. And if you want to dive deeply into all the things you can do to help your kids thrive, be happier while making your own life more enjoyable, go to smartparentingsecrets.com, where you can get free additional training. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, bring out the best in yourself and each other.